Later, this forum, candidate forum, is the second in a series of 3, sponsored by the American Association of University Women and by the League of Women Voters. Later on, I'm going to say no applause. Oh, go ahead. And that's your last chance. My name is Phil Andrus. We are going to be hearing from candidates for 2 positions, Jefferson County Sheriff and Jefferson County Prosecutor. Good evening. And I guess we can probably introduce Catherine Buchanan of the, I guess you're from the American Association of University Women. My notes are sketchy here. Would you wish to make an opening statement yourself?
A quick comment. Very quick.
Don't have to be quick.
Hi, my name is Catherine Buchanan, and I'm from the Public Policy President for the AUW locally. We are 70 years old this year. We have given out over $70,000 worth of scholarships to the local women and girls in STEM and different programs in the schools, math, reading, grants read literacy, primary school literacy, career day, and other programs for the people that live here in this area. We also support public forums like this with the League of Women Voters, and we thank you all for participating in our government.
And from the League of Women Voters, Sheila Murphy.
Thank you all for coming. I want to thank Phil for doing this moderating. This is his first time doing moderation for the League and for AUW, and I really appreciate it, and I know everyone will be kind and respectful and listen to them. I want to thank the candidates for coming, because believe it or not, we've had a forum where they didn't. And I want to thank AUW for co-sponsoring with us. The League is a very small league here in Port Townsend, and so we're always looking for new members. We have a meeting on July 26th, Thursday, at the Bishop Hotel at 7 o'clock, and you're all welcome to come. And I know you all have too many organizations in your life, so here's what else you can do. You can donate. Go over to the cookie jar over there and donate, because we use that money to put on these forums. So we really appreciate your attendance, and we'd really like a little money. Thank you for coming.
We're going to start with Joe Knoll and David Stanko, candidates for sheriff. They will each get to make a 3-minute opening statement. Well, how handy to have notes. A 3-minute opening statement. And yes, closer to the microphone. Thank you, Gary. Oh, by the way, on sound, Gary Ambrecht, thank you for what you do. And also Sunny Flores in the back of the room on sound. Sunny is not only working the sound. I don't know the gentleman's name. Speak. Say it again.
Dennis Deneau.
Thank you, Dennis Deneau. He's videotaping. And Sunny is making a recording for broadcast on KPTZ at some later date. We don't know when. Each candidate will be able to make one 3-minute opening statement. We flipped a coin, and the winner of the coin flip, or the loser as he may see it, is Joe Knoll. Before his opening statement, however, there will be questions after, 2-minute questions to the microphone in the back, also written questions to Dale Spears, who's, I believe, back that way somewhere. So we'll have questions to the microphone, questions also in writing, and I will choose which we care to ask from time to time, either the verbal or the written. I think that we can probably get rolling here. One comment is we're going to not have applause. We are not going to have jeering and other heckling of the candidates or of one another. We're going to be as respectful as we wish the entire country was when it came to politics and people. And I like your attitude. So, opening statement, we start with Joe Knoll. 3 minutes. The timekeeper is Catherine Buchanan, who has those, yes, but he actually has 3 minutes to go.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. My name is Joe Knoll, and I'm running for the office of Jefferson County Sheriff. I'm currently a detective at the Sheriff's Office. I've been there 28 years in the department. During that time, I've held the positions of patrol deputy, detective, chief criminal deputy. I was appointed the sheriff at one time, and I've also been the undersheriff. I grew up in Tacoma, and I've lived here with my family for the past 33 years. My wife Terry and I have been married for 40 years, and we have 3 daughters who went to the Chimacum schools and still live in the county. We need change in the sheriff's office, and that's why I'm running. I believe strongly in community policing, and I practice it throughout my career. To me, it means creating a network of relationships and trust between the staff and all kinds of people. It means returning phone calls and checking in on people and reaching out to people who won't be coming to a community coffee. I would also like to follow through on some things we've started but haven't finished. Over the last 4 years, we've had some training programs that need to be completed or improved upon. One of these is Blue Courage training. We need to complete that course, and we need to provide more than the state-required bare-bones minimum for de-escalation training. We need to finish the accreditation process. Accreditation is more than a certificate. It's a process, and we should complete it with staff instead of volunteers, so the staff will have pride and ownership. I would not continue with the Operation Stone Garden grant. It has been my job to help administer it, but I've never been comfortable taking this money from Homeland Security. It's true that we have a shared interest in stopping human trafficking and smuggling, and we get some equipment, but the required patrol shifts bother me. On Stone Garden shifts, the Border Patrol tells us where we can patrol, and we give them the names of people we contact for their database, and I don't think that's right. We also are asked to provide them with the number of subjects we turned over to Border Patrol and the number of immigration cases we had for that shift. And I believe I can raise the morale of the staff. Low morale makes us less effective, and some good people have already left for other jobs. I have the support of the staff, but I did warn them that 2 weeks after I'm elected, they might not like me like they do now. I have clear expectations, and I'll hold them and myself accountable, but I know that we are up for the challenge. Thank you.
And David, you can step to the podium or use your microphone there as you wish.
Sure, I appreciate that. It's been a privilege to be your sheriff for the last 4 years. You elected me to put the sheriff house in order, and let's get to it. I ran on a platform of assessment, change, and community. Assessors found hardworking deputies, but operational neglect, dysfunction. We have an evidence room that was not inventoried for 20 years. My opponent was in charge of that. We have several pending internal investigations. My opponent was the acting sheriff. They weren't done. We had an unnecessary military Hummer, a SWAT team, and stealth police cars, adverse to community policing. We no longer have the Hummer. We no longer have the stealth police cars. We have black and whites. And we no longer have a SWAT team. We have an Alice perspective. We have an active shooter team. Management resisted the change with a New World software that has now been implemented. Management resistance to best practice policies, that's Lexipol. My opponent was in charge of that. It is now implemented by the Undersheriff, Art Frank. And we have never had consistent employee evaluations. We now have those. Inconsistent supervision, direction, lack of organizational planning, mission, and values. We now have a mission statement and values that I didn't design, the employees did, the community did. It's not me, it's community and employee driven. The last 4 years I've had to make tough decisions. I've fired people, demoted people. I've had to discipline people, reassign people for the organization and a community benefit. No decisions that I've made have been done in a vacuum. None. I've had to consult with the HR, union, county people. I have a serious job balancing a $6 million budget, civil, jail, patrol, investigation. We have a Ho Indian tribe. We have West End. We have 50 employees. You need a multitasking, visionary person to succeed. I'm that person. Being one-dimensional does not cut it. We are working on assessment, strategic plan, our citizen advisory committee, more community engagement. As former President Obama said in his 6 pillars of 21st century policing, community policing is community engagement. It's us and the community. It's not an individual. It's not I can do it. It's we can do it together. Also, our accreditation process is being done for a paid staff person, not a volunteer. He's a retired captain. He knows exactly what he's doing, and we are moving towards completion. And our strategic plan is a living document done by our employees. They just met, and it's a living document. They meet every 3 months and have it updated. Thank you for your time.
So we will have now questions. Questions from the audience. Step up to the microphone. I think a line will probably form. And each candidate has 2 minutes. The question should be to both candidates, and they will have 2 minutes apiece to answer. We have about 30 minutes for questions, so make your question a question and make it brief. Libby Palmer.
Thank you. It's wonderful that both of you are in the sheriff's office and have worked there this long so that I can expect an answer from both of you. And it regards Operation Stone Garden funds. We understand your positions about it. However, is this a public record? In other words, is it possible for you to tell us during the hours that your deputies were being funded by Operation Stone Garden, they met with 0 immigrants, 20 immigrants? What were the natures of those encounters and what happened as a result of that? Is that public information?
David Stanko first. And you could, use that microphone.
Hi, Libby. Good to see you. As you know, we've met several times in my office with you and Kate Franco. In fact, Kate Franco is helping us with interpretation, which we really appreciate. Without that, it wouldn't be as helpful. To answer your question, the information that is given is not secret. Everything we do is public information. And the grant is a FEMA grant, Federal Emergency Management Association. It is only being administered by Homeland Security. You mentioned immigrants several times. It's not immigrants. The grant is for terrorism reduction, drug trafficking reduction, and human trafficking reduction. There is on the second page in paragraph C, it says we do not enforce Title 8, period. But yes, the information that you request is available, absolutely.
Thanks for the question. That's a good one. I would argue that the information is not available to the public because we provide it to Homeland Security, to the Border Patrol, and I don't know, I can't speak for the Border Patrol if they would give that information out, but I would think that someone that, if it's just information that's going out on someone we contacted, that may not be available. If they weren't arrested or commit a crime, there's no reason for the public to know that. The other thing, my opponent tries to make it sound like the Stone Garden grant is just for human trafficking or terrorism. It is for those things, but it is for finding undocumented immigrants. And I know on his website he has part of the a part of a page on there, which I'm surprised that that's on there since it's for your information only, law enforcement sensitive. But he only puts a little part where it says we don't enforce Title 8. We don't enforce the immigration law. Well, we may not enforce the immigration law, but we provide information to the people that do. So I think people in here are smart enough to figure out for themselves what that's all about. And you know, we don't want people to have we don't want humans to be trafficked. We don't want terrorists in the area. We don't have to have Border Patrol or Homeland Security or FEMA. I mean, if you look at if you could see the whole document, you see who we report to, and it's all the way up the chain through Border Patrol to Homeland Security to FEMA. So I think it is for helping them in a number of things, but one of them in particular is to find undocumented immigrants. Thank you.
Next question, please.
Thank you both for appearing tonight to answer these questions. It's my understanding that Jefferson County has no sexual assault nurse examiner services. Have you seen this adversely affect law enforcement in our community or for the women who have been raped? What role do you see for the Sheriff's Office in helping to bring these services to our community, and what would you like these services to look like?
Joe Knoll.
Well, a big part of my career was I've been a detective, and I've worked for a long time. My main focus was working sex crimes, and When I was a detective back in the olden days, if you want to say, we actually had a doctor here in town who could do sexual assault exams. And for those that don't know what that is, if someone's been sexually assaulted, they have to see a specialist that can look for the evidence of some kind of forced crime or something like that. So right now, the closest sexual assault nurse is in Bremerton at Harrison Hospital. And the problem we run into is, for court case, for a case, we need to have that evidence. And a lot of times, we have to tell the victim that they have to drive to Bremerton and go get an exam done. Now, in the past, we would actually, CPS would help provide rides, because it's not just adults, this is for little kids too. And it's really a burden on the family to have to, you have this traumatic experience, then you're told, oh yeah, you have to go over to Bremerton and meet with a nurse, and they're going to do some stuff to your son or your daughter or to yourself, and then send that information to the sheriff's office. But it is something that we need, and if there was a way, I know through the years it's kind of changed, and we used to be able to provide rides, and anything the sheriff's office can do to support that, I am fully behind, and I know there's a push now to have our own sexual assault nurse in the county, which would really be a boon for everybody. It's something that we really need, and that's one of the crimes that we investigate a lot are sex crimes. Thanks.
David?
Thanks for your question, by the way. It's a question that really impacts the whole county. I'm on the Dove House Board, and I've been on the Dove House Board for the last 5 years. I'm the former chair of the Dove House Board, and I work very closely with Beulah, the executive director. And we have a passion for having advocates be with these women when they go to Bremerton. When a police officer or a deputy stops a sexual assault victim, they will call, and the first call goes to the advocate. And Beulah will provide an advocate, and that advocate will stay with the sexual assault victim until they are in Bremerton and back home again. I think it's very, very important for that, and I support that 100%. And like my opponent said, it'd be nice to have a SANE nurse here in the county. It's been a long time, but thank you very much for the question.
Next question.
My name's John Langdon. I live here in Port Townsend. This is a question for both of you concerning endorsement of active sheriffs. There are 39 counties in the state of Washington. 26 of the active, that is in-office sheriffs, have endorsed Dave Stanko. None have endorsed Detective Knoll. I'd like to know why that is.
And David, you go first.
John, thanks for asking the question. I had 2 more sheriffs endorse me today. Ozzie Knetovich from Spokane and the sheriff from Cliticast County. So that was a very good question, and beyond that, I cannot answer why, other than these men that I work with, they're contemporary sheriffs. They belong to the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. We meet together at least twice a year. I am on the legislative committee for the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. I'm also on the field response team peer review board that is going to drive a grant for field responses for mental health, and that will also move into sexual assault and any other type of intervention we can do, but it's mainly a grant for mental health people. And again, all the sheriffs are working very hard towards the accreditation process, John, and the sheriffs are working very hard for the Living Strategic Plan, but I appreciate that question. Thank you.
And Joe.
That's a good question. there's 39 counties, 39 sheriffs, and 37 of them support my opponent. And you have to ask yourself, how much do they know about my opponent? How much time does he spend with them? He goes to WASPIC conference. I used to go to those. You meet the sheriff, you eat dinner and stuff, you go to some training. And also, I've been told from former sheriffs that if you are a member of WASPIC as a sheriff, you will likely get the endorsement of all the sheriffs. Doesn't mean they know how you work. It doesn't mean they know what your department's like. I have the endorsement of the last 4 Jefferson County sheriffs. And I work with all of them, work side by side with them. They know what I'm like. They've seen my work. They know what I do. And they endorse me. I spent years with them, not a couple weeks out of the year.
And next question.
I'm delighted to hear that you both are interested in the whole issue of having a sexual assault nurse in the area, a certified sexual assault nurse who can take evidence to court that won't be dismissed. I'm wondering if you can tell me why we don't have one.
Joe?
It comes down to money.
That sounds right.
Just like, like I said, in the old days where we had one, the equipment she had actually belonged to her. It's called a colposcope, and it's really just one of the things that they use. It's really a fancy way to take pictures, and they're very expensive, and I don't know what it has advanced to now, but because of the amount of exams there would be and the cost for the equipment, and it's training that they have to repeat, keep getting certified in, that it just wasn't financially feasible to have for the hospital to have one, or for a private doctor to have their own practice doing that.
David Stanko?
I think it probably is budgetary, but it's also a concern for Dove House. And I know Beulah and the board and her staff are working very hard to move in that direction. As to when that will happen, I don't have a timeline for you. But I think getting a hold of Beulah and the Dove House staff will help maybe your concerns for that particular issue, because I know the board and the Dove House staff are in favor of that.
I realize we're an isolated county, but we've got a lot of women in this county who don't really feel safe.
You get to ask that very well. James Fritz.
Yeah. How badly does poverty, lack of jobs, and homelessness affect the Sheriff's Department? Both of you, either of you.
David, you're next.
Thank you, Phil. I thought you were going to answer that. That's okay. Thank you. I think it's a very prevalent question here. I think that we have the largest budget in the county, $6 million. But we also have a 365-day, 24-hour coverage that we have to maintain. We have to go all the way from the West End, where we have 2 resident deputies. We have a contract with the Ho Indian tribe, which is very poverty-stricken. The BIA gives us money to help keep our deputies out there, and it's still not enough. The Ho Indian tribe gives us about $200,000 a year. It costs about $140,000 a year to keep a deputy on the road. So it's not even enough out there, but we still have an obligation to take care of the people in Jefferson County. Absolutely, I think that poverty drives the people that we have in our jail. Right now, we're averaging 52 people in our custody, souls in our jail, and a lot of them have substance abuse problems and mental health problems. We're trying to address that. And I think that housing is an issue here. I think jobs are an issue here. I don't see where, by the way, we can find those without bringing jobs in, but that's not why we're here. We're mandated with public safety. We're mandated with taking care of the souls in our jail. We're mandated with the safety of the whole community. We had a deputy in a 19-minute fight down in Brennan about 8 months ago. That's not acceptable. We need to have backup too, because I have to keep my deputies safe. My job is in the deputies' home, safe to their families at night, as well as be sure that you're safe in your homes. Thank you.
Joe.
I think the question was how do jobs and homelessness affect our jobs at the Sheriff's Office?
Jobs, how does lack of jobs, homelessness, and poverty affect the Sheriff's Department's crime load?
Yeah, I think I don't think that's an easy question to answer. We have people that have jobs and people that have money that end up in our jail too. And we have people that have homes that end up in our jail. And we have homeless people that don't end up in our jail. Same thing with people that don't have jobs. But one thing that we have to deal with is the public's, the citizens sometimes want to report a homeless person in a certain area or something like that, and we are faced with, what are we going to do about that when there's nowhere to take that person? So, I couldn't say what kind of impact that really has, on our day-to-day activities. We deal with all kinds of people, and that's one thing I've learned over the years was. Everybody's capable of doing something. It doesn't matter where you come from or where you were born or how much money you have, so or if you have a house or not.
Thanks.
I have a written question I'm going to read, and then we'll get to you. The question is, and this will be answered first by Joe Knoll, what is your stance on guns in the schools and on arming teachers? And that's for Joe.
Well, I don't think there should be guns in the schools, and I don't think that teachers should be armed. I think we need to do more than that. For a while, we were really engaged with the schools about 4 years ago, and that's changed. And we had a couple deputies that are no longer here. I talked about some deputies that had left, and they were the two that were mainly in charge of carrying on. We were working primarily with Chimicum School, but it included all the schools in the whole county. We were working with the Port Townsend Police Department and the Port Townsend schools to come up with a strategy for dealing with school shootings and violence in the schools and things like that. And we were having people going to training together, and we were planning to have some exercises and activities, and that just kind of dwindled away. And right now, I know that we've done some ALICE training, which teaches people what to do if you are in a situation where there's an active shooter. And that's a good thing, but I think we need to get back in with the schools and the fire departments and the other first responders and pick up where we left off and move forward into making our schools a safe place. But I don't think, having guns in the school or arming the teachers, is a good idea. When I first heard about arming the teachers, I thought, oh, and then you just have to think a little farther and realize that that's kind of a wild idea. So, thank you.
David.
Well, my opponent and I are on the same page. I don't believe we should have guns in the school or armed teachers also. But I disagree with my opponent. We have had a continuing collaborative training with the firefighters, with the school districts. We met with them and had tabletop exercises to try to find out, like from Chimicum or Brennan or Quilcene, how we would operate. Active shooter training is very important that you work together in a partnership, because when the police get there to take care of the threat, right behind us will come the firefighters, right behind them will come the paramedics to fix that. And yes, ALICE training is very important also. It's the new acronym to try to help teachers and students and business owners. If you have a business with any amount of people, the ALICE training will help you cope with that type of situation. And also, we had school districts there, we had fire districts there, we had multiple police departments there. So I disagree with my opponent. We do work together collaboratively and as a partnership. Thank you.
Next question in the back.
A couple weeks ago, I was in traffic court again. And I watched a clever attorney get 7 cases in a row for traffic violations dismissed because whether it was the city or the county had failed to produce the documentation necessary to enable the defense attorney to defend the defendant. So it was a lack of record production. Another word for it was sloppy record keeping by either the county or the city, and I don't know which it was. So my question is, I think Dave mentioned that your staff is 50. Is that right?
Yes.
Then you have, I assume, lots of volunteers. The underlying question is, what do you see as the staffing needs going forward? Do you see a need for additional staff, additional volunteers, and a special person to review all requests for documents so that those traffic scofflaws don't walk out of that courtroom with no charges? Thank you.
David.
Well, the first thing is, Barbara, slow down. You won't be in traffic court.
It was a seat belt.
Oh, a seatbelt rule, okay. Staffing is an issue, it's an ongoing challenge with the county. We had a staffing study done when I first took office. We need 7 more deputies by 2020. I asked for 2 deputies in 2016, got none. I asked for 2 deputies in 2017, got none. I asked for 2 deputies this year, and the commissioners gave us money for a half a deputy. What that translates to is that's for salary and benefits, and then we'll be creative and find the money for the body to be on the street from that perspective. Our jail is, we're not up to staff yet. We have our jail superintendent here. You can ask him later, but we're working on it. We have a couple in the academy right now, and we have an opening still. We have a control room operator that's helping. But to your point, Barbara, we have one person working records right now, and the other person, as an example, has been off sick for a week, and we have one person on L&I. So we are trying to actively mitigate those problems so we can be fully staffed. But we work very closely. The Undersheriff Art Frank works very closely with the prosecutor and Michael Haas's team to be sure that the paperwork gets up there in a timely manner. As to what happens between our office and his office, I can't comment on that. But we do produce the paperwork up there as we should every single day. Thank you for the question.
And Joe?
Well, as far as the tickets go in court, that shouldn't be happening, and I would say that's the fault of a supervisor that let some paperwork get through that shouldn't have got through, or not keeping track of what their people are doing. And if that's happening, they need to be held accountable and make sure that that does happen, because it's a waste of the deputy's time to write the tickets. It's a waste of the court to have to deal with that stuff. So that needs to be taken care of before it leaves our office, if it was our office. As far as our staff being 50, I just want everyone to understand that, you probably already do, but that includes corrections, office staff. We don't have 50 deputies. I just want everyone to understand that. And the staffing needs for the future, like I said, I've been at the Sheriff's Office 28 years. The day I started, we needed more people then. We've always needed people, and it's just always that way. And most police departments, sheriff's offices around the country, we all need more people. And one thing that we have to do is we have to work smarter. We have to put our resources where crimes are happening. We have to be on top of that stuff. We have to analyze our data. We have to see, where do we need to have our people to make the most effect with few resources that we have. At the same time, always pushing forward to try to get some extra bodies on patrol. Thank you.
Quite likely the last question, Norm Norton.
I would like to hear from both of you regarding the gun range issue. Your comments, efforts to mitigate, whatever you have to say. Thank you.
Joe.
Well, what gun range are you talking about? Yeah. We all know I think most of us know there's some things going on with gun ranges. And in my opinion, something's going to happen with gun ranges. Outdoor gun ranges, I think, are becoming a thing of the past. And we need to start looking at, or I shouldn't say we, but a business person needs to start looking at how they could have a gun range that's indoors, where it's not going to make a bunch of noise. I really think that's where this is going to go. Because people just aren't putting up with that stuff anymore. We've always used the Sportsman's Club where we shoot for the Sheriff's Office, and there may have been some few complaints years ago, but it's getting to be more and more. And I think that I've been around long enough that it seems like more and more in the news and things you hear, there's people that move into something next door to something stinky, and a few months later, that stinky place is shut down, even though the people came last. So I think that's going to be the same thing with the gun ranges. And I know there's a new one that someone wants to put in down in the Tarboo area. I don't think it's the sheriff's job to decide where a gun range can be or who can go to that. I think that our job is to enforce the law and not get involved in civil issues on where things should be, or have an opinion one way or another. Thank you.
David.
Thanks for the question. We are involved in the shooting range controversy. I have a representative on the coalition that is working with the county to see if we can mitigate the gun range challenge here. And how that works out is going to be up to the committee. They have to report to the commissioners within a certain amount of time. I don't recall exactly how many weeks that are. I personally put an indoor range together down in the Orange County area in Fullerton. And my opponent is right. Absolutely does it mitigate noise, absolutely does it mitigate lead, absolutely can you mine the lead out of the rubber backstop. You can do that. The county has the property to do that, but it's going to be up to the other folks on this committee to see what and how they want to work with that particular issue. As far as the former gun range, Joe, my partner's actually right over here, my opponent. We have to enforce the laws. And I did that with the former owner of Discovery Bay. The county had an ordinance back in 2009 to not allow military training there, to not allow law enforcement training there, and I enforced that because we have rules, we have laws. We also had where our deputies were allowed to work out there. You can't do that. We have rules against that. So yes, I enforce the rules, I enforce the laws. I'm not in a popularity contest. I'm not here to please people. I'm here to keep you safe and be sure that our community's safe. Thank you.
And I'm sure many of you have questions. We have time enough just for the 2 3-minute closing statements from the candidates. I also have a question I don't get to ask, which I regret. First 3-minute closing statement from David Stenko.
Thank you. I think I'll take the podium. First of all, I want to say I thank you very much for coming tonight. You're taking time out of your own day and time out of your own life to come hear candidates. I want to thank my opponent for running. This is deja vu for me. I've been your sheriff for 4 years. I like this job. I want your vote. I really need another 4 years to complete the accreditation process. I need another 4 years to continue to work on our strategic planning process. And I want you to know that this WASPIC that my opponent kind of poo-poos, they don't. They're very serious about this. It's called the Dirty Dozen. What gets sheriff's offices and police departments in trouble? Going it alone. You can't do things yourself, folks. My opponent says he can do the strategic plan. He can do this. He can do that. I can't. I need your help. I need the community's help. I need other law enforcement help. I can't do it myself. Public records. It comes back to sting us. Jails. Another problem with us. Property room management. I had a property room that wasn't inventoried in 20 years. Training. Spot on. It's budget. $6 million budget, but I have to be sure that I have the money before I can do training. We have a training plan and a training sergeant that does that. Complaint management. I came into 5 pending complaints. That's libelous. It's not good. I can't read it. My glasses again. Promotions. I've had to promote people, I've had to fire people, I've had to demote people. It's not fun, it's not pleasant, but it has to be done for the good of the community and for the good of the organization. Administration, we are low on staff. I do need an effective administrative staff to keep us out of trouble. And no planning, you need a plan and a vision. Our strategic plan is employee driven. It just doesn't sit on the shelf. It's where we go, but it's all about you. It's all about public safety, folks. It's not about us. It's about you. I don't care who sits behind the desk of sheriff, whether it's me, which I want to be, I want your vote, or whether it is my opponent. It's all about you and about how we can help you. You can't go it alone, folks. Do you understand that? I don't see how people can say that we can go it alone. You can't do it with volunteers. I've got, like I said, a retired captain that helps me on accreditation. Lastly, with my last 30 seconds here, this is not a popularity contest. I have an opponent because I keep folks accountable and responsible for their actions. The people that I've disciplined, the people that I've demoted, look at his endorsement list. See who's on there. Thank you.
And Joe Noel, last closing statement.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming, and hope you're enjoying this stuff. I didn't set out to work in law enforcement. I started out as a backcountry ranger in the Buckhorn Wilderness and a high school biology teacher. As it turns out, that was good prep for this line of work. It isn't easy for me to get up here and talk about how great I am, but I guess that's what you have to do to get elected, and I want to be elected. I think we need change at the sheriff's office. I've worked at the right hand of the previous 4 Jefferson County sheriffs. I've learned a lot from them, both what to do and what not to do. They personally know me and support me. They know that the deputies and staff will be able to look to me for leadership. They know me as a person of integrity, compassion, and dedication. I have proven leadership, and I have shown that I can be a partner with the community and other agencies, and I am proud to say that I have done that throughout my career. I don't know where this thing comes up about me doing it alone. The one thing that I would do alone, and I wouldn't really be alone, but I wouldn't have had to hire someone for like over $20,000 to come in and show me how to do a strategic plan. I think that's the sheriff's responsibility to know what the strategic plan should be. The sheriff should know where the department needs to go, and he should know how to lead it there. I think that the community and the employees should be involved with the strategic plan, but I don't think that you need to hire someone to come in and show us how to do it. And anyway, do it alone. That might be the one thing I think I could do alone, but I wouldn't do it alone without my employees in the community, but I wouldn't need to bring someone in. And my 35 years of local law enforcement experience in Jefferson County has prepared me to take this next step in making a positive difference in our community, and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your questions. We're going to take a 15-minute break.